Well, hello everybody, this is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to your Critique of the Week. It's Friday, January 9th. Thanks so much for joining me. Just came hot off the AMA over on Reddit. I wonder if anybody is coming over there from that. Let's see. Who do we have in the house right now? We've got Lynn Schilling is here, Terry Miller, Steve Horrell, Patty Arbor, Michael Ketchum, Nancy Sabanik, Brian O'Sullivan. Hey, Brian. Terry Miller is here. Leslie Ann Skechterson. Mary Keating is here. Dick Westheimer. Phil Hall. Dee Coleman is here. Connie Gibson Tran. Shelley Kay. Christina Nueven. Winston Munn. Ryan McCarty. Tom Barlow. Hemant Malik. May Nee. Jesse. Katie Doder, next room over, who's joining me on that Ask Me Anything About the Rattle Chapbook Prize. That's coming up. The deadline is January 15th. Of course, anybody watching this should be getting their manuscripts together. If you haven't yet, find a way to put your poems into some kind of order and then send them in. The prize, there's 3 prizes, $5,000 each. The top 3 manuscripts get published along with our issues in the next year. It's really, so many things I say are my favorite thing, but that's one of the things I say is my favorite thing, is the ability to publish these chapbooks and get such a wide audience to such great books. I was just working, as we speak, on The Soft Black Stars by Matthew Buckley Smith, which is the spring chapbook. I was typesetting that, and it is such a wonderful, just a wonderful book, full of formal verse, which is something we don't get enough of. So that's exciting, but... Anyway, let's see what we have to share. Now, if you are here listening right now and you have submitted a poem for critique, make yourself known. That's how we're going to do it from now on. We're going to try to, so anybody can submit. And if you want your poems critiqued, the best way to do it is to be in the chat window on YouTube, say you're here, and I'll find your poems, and then we'll go over them right now while you're here. And that way we can get to the people who are participating the most. So Carla Daisy James has 2 in the queue. Great. Okay, so we'll do Carla Daisy James. We should probably write these names down. Carla Daisy James is the first person. Let me do Carla Daisy James. Okay. And anybody else? And if we run out of people who are here who have poems in the queue, which I doubt will happen, then we will just pick random ones. But let's do... Oh, and Deborah Katai has one too. Okay, so we'll do at least Carla and Deborah today. And let's start with Carla first. And as always, the point is to give that workshop experience. It's so valuable, just letting people know how they react, how a reader reacts to their poems. It's really hard to get that distance, to see the poems through a reader's eyes. And what workshops really do is you sit around the table with a dozen people or whatever, seeing how those poems are landing, how those lines are landing, and where we're being lost, where we're engaged. And this really helps. And so leave as many comments as you can. Small things like words that feel off, big things like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. Any comments you want to leave are helpful to the poet. Terry Miller says it's an MFA on wheels. I like that. I do have wheels on my chair, so technically that's true. I'm not sure we're accredited yet, but maybe someday. Anyway, let's take a look at Carla James. Let's see, Carla James. Yeah, Carla's got 2 here. She's got Psalms for the first one. Let's take a look. So she says, okay. We'll do the other poem first. Carla is from North Carolina. No general questions. So if you do submit your poems, then there's a spot to leave general questions. If you just want to ask something, feel free to ask about the poems or just a general concept. It's sort of you have the floor to share a couple poems and talk about how they work and what's going on and anything you want to talk about for a little brief period. So this first poem is What Am I Going to Do on Sundays? And it's a pasted in poem, so we'll take a look at it this way. And the title is in the metadata, so you can't really see it. But what am I going to do on Sundays? I am American. I am female. I am soft and rigid. I am rough, firm, unshakable. I am honest and full of lies when I tell my children it is worth living. I am head of household. I am Hispanic, but there is only white or black or Asian as an option. I have never committed crimes, though I have dreamed of them. I am single, I am divorced, I am remarried, I am confused, I am light, I am spiritual, I am a non-believer of your God. I am a little sister, I have been a teen mother. I am rich in love, health, fortitude, desire. I am poor in time. I am all that I need, I am baptized, I am a daughter of the universe, I am lost sheep. Can I be lost if I choose to wander? I have stolen, I have been a giver, I am delusional, I am always aware, I live paycheck to paycheck, I pretend to be white, I pretend to be Hispanic, I eat tortillas and make them poorly. I was born on U.S. soil, I have parents who were not, I am American, I am human and all gender, I am gross and cutthroat, I have confessed, have you. All right, so one of the things, I think the main thing we want to talk about, there's a general concept, general principle that adjectives are something that are the weakest sort of part of speech. They're the least important, like colors and things like that. And it's because they're sort of generic categories. They're labels for things. And this poem, it focuses on labels and generalities in the same way adjectives do. Whereas if we're talking about nouns and building whole pictures of things and making it feel concrete, that's what we mean when we say concrete. That's the way that makes a poem stick. And so having, I am American, I'm female, this is a list of adjectives, really. I am female, I am soft and rigid, I am firm, rough, unshakable, I am honest and full of lies. So all these things are really abstractions. They're not things that live on an emotional, visceral level. There are a couple good lines. I like, as somebody said, Kvarstorm says, repetition of I am American works well. I like that aspect. There's a rhetorical energy to it when you have repetition moving like that. But what we need is more detail and more specificity so we can really see your perspective clearly and not through these abstractions. As Kimberly Gibson Trans putting it, though it's an I am poem, the categories are very general. Any number of people could identify with this, but who is the individual? And exactly. And what we want to see, imagine, and I think this is something that happens all the time, where we think that abstractions are keeping things vague and general lets more people relate to them, because it's like a big, broad category and everybody can fit, so you can relate. But that's not really how it works. We really connect with the specificity of that one speaker's voice being unique. That's why being the individual is really important. And another way to put it, as Lynn Schilling says, is I like the ideas expressed, but more showing and less telling would be good. And so it's a poem that, another way to put it is just that it tells you, instead of show you. And so there are a couple of opportunities here. We can keep the same rhythm because that's working really well, that repetition. But let's see, I've never committed crimes, though I have dreamed of them. This line right here. What if instead of just saying that, we started listing and imagining crimes? We dove into a memory where you were about to commit a crime. And what crime was that? And we want to, what did you dream of? And put us in that place. And that'll make us feel a lot more connected to the poem. I'm single, I'm divorced, I'm remarried, I'm confused, I'm light, I'm spiritual, non-believer. Let's see, just poor. Where was another one that was a good? I am all that I need, I am baptized. I'm a daughter of the universe, I am lost sheep. Can I be lost if I choose to wander? I think this is one of the best lines in the poem. I like that. And notice how there's a sheep. There's a specific, even if it's it's a general animal, it's still more specific than any other element of the poem. And we are drawn to that psychologically. That's the way our brains work. And so more stuff like that. I am a lost sheep. Can I be lost if I choose to wander? Having this abstraction connected to just the physical concept, the concrete image of the sheep being lost, makes this concept, this abstract concept, more strong and profound and connective. And so this is the kind of thing we want to do more of. And in this listing of the descriptors is what we want to do less of, because it's just not effective. I have stolen, I've been a giver, I'm delusional, I'm always aware, I live paycheck to paycheck, I pretend to be white, I pretend to be Hispanic, I eat tortillas and make them poorly. There's another good one. We can see the tortillas, I make them poorly. What does it mean to make tortillas poorly? Take us through that. Show us some details there. That's another place we can eat. Yeah. And Brian O'Sullivan was just saying the same thing. Eat tortillas and I make them poorly is a bit more concrete than most of the lines. And again, when we say show, don't tell, when we say use concrete language, what we're really saying is be specific and make the speaker's enter your body so you become the speaker when you're reading the poem. That's what a poem really does. The medium that you're playing on is my breath, the person who's reading the poem. You're inhabiting my breath and using that as the medium to create art. And the reason why poetry is so connective is because we get to enter you enter us, and then we get to feel the experience of you. And so we want that as specific and detailed as possible so we can feel more you and get more connection. And so that's why we always say, show, don't tell, use more details, things like that. Okay. Let's see. And we do ask for 2 poems because we can see if it's the same kind of things going on. Let me see. So Beth J. Moore, though, says, I feel really interested in the final idea of confession. It comes out of nowhere, and I would love to see it drawn out. Is it confession for healing, for forgiveness? Why does the author want me to? Yeah, and that is that's a good point to mention. I like to, we have this I am, and then finally we have this turn to the you, where you're directly addressing the person you were speaking to, which is the reader. And I think that I think that's a good, there's like an intuition that we need to go somewhere with the poem by ending it that way. By having some kind of perspective shift, some kind of voice shift. We call a volta in a sonnet, but the way the poem starts to go one way and anchors into another, that's how a poem becomes transformative. And having that impulse to end on a question directed at the person we didn't know you were going to address just shows a good intuition for poetry in the shape of a poem. It's just getting in a lot more concrete detail and specificity to make it come to life. Okay, now let's take a look at the other poem that Carla sent. Again, this is Carla James from North Carolina. I'm going to put that, label that so we know that we went over it. Oops, wrong label though. Helps if I do the right label. Okay. And the next one is Psalms. And we'll see if this has more detail. And if not, that's just going to be the general thing, but we'll see. Okay. Psalms. A deep breath before sunrise. The sky unfastening itself, drinking your coffee, and maybe being able to ask, would you too like coffee? Would you want eggs? Eating oranges in the shower, citrus oils making your skin a cathedral for small glowing suns, treating your skin to soft luxuries like lotion, whispering to your water, make me beautiful, knowing that the river does not judge, it carries, it remembers. Giving goodnight kisses and hugs, but not once but twice, because repetition is a ritual, and rituals make the ordinary holy. Bare feet on the grass, for rubber soles cannot connect you to the gossip of roots, to the fungal lace beneath, to the patient memory of stones, fallen leaves in your car. They find a home in your wipers, the soft reminder that seasons do not need your permission. Honeysuckle, sweetness that lingers longer than the flower, and maybe psalms are not written or sung, they are found in the way we offer the world our small daily devotions. What am I going to do on Sundays? Oh, sorry. The second poem was in there too. Anyway, yeah, our small daily devotions is how it ends. Yeah, so there's a lot more detail here, and notice how much more this poem feels alive. Yeah, a lot more concrete, as Brian O'Sullivan says. And so this is the direction to go, not the direction of that other poem, but the direction of this one. We have a lot more to grip and be a part of and enter that world, so we're connected. Yeah. And Deborah Katai says, knowing the river does not judge, it carries, it remembers, or striking lines. Yeah, those are some of my favorite lines in the poem, too. Let's take a closer look, because there's a lot more to talk about here. Psalms, a deep breath before sunrise. So I think... my interpretation is that each stanza is sort of a separate psalm. Is that, and I think there's a little bit of, I don't usually suggest, sectioning like 1, 2, 3, 4, but I think it might be nice here to understand that there is a shift. It took me to like the third or fourth one to realize that they were all separate. And I think just numbering the sections would help, would make that clear a little more easily. Anyway, a deep breath before sunrise, the sky unfastening itself, drinking your coffee, and maybe being able to ask, would you too like coffee? Would you want eggs? Yeah, eating oranges. I'm not sure. So the first stanza isn't as strong as the rest. Again, this is there's more detail than the last poem, but less interesting detail than the lines that follow. And so this might be something to just cut and start out, here, and somebody said, eating oranges in the shower is a vivid image. That was Rose Leonard who said that, and I agree. We could just say Psalms, eating oranges in the shower, citrus oils making your skin a cathedral for small glowing suns. Yeah. So Kimberly Gibson Tran, no, wait. No, Katie Scruggs Galloway, sorry, says, I like it, but I need more info on this Yor. And then Kimberly Gibson Tran replies, I'm drawn to the Yor, but yes, the identity is left hanging. Better if the you is a specific person, I think. Yeah. And always just more specificity equals more power and connection in the poem. That's pretty much a universal law. And so anytime you can make it feel, psalm to my granddaughter, to pick a random, then we have a sense of who it is, or psalm to, Joseph, or who knows what. We can feel more of a connection the more specific we get. Yeah. So a few people are talking about. Terry Miller suggests the body psalm. I like that. Yeah. Shelley K says that the punctuation and capitalization is a little confusing. That's another thing to always talk about. You want nothing to distract from the content of the poem, and yeah. And sorry, get distracted by reading some comments. But you want the poem to be clear in what is being conveyed, and you don't want things to distract from that. And so if you're going to have, unusual punctuation or no capitalization, the default is to read things like normal sentence structure. And if you're going to not have that, there should be a reason for it. And there should be steps in place to make it so we don't get lost or trip over things when that happens. And that's just my general advice about doing things like not having consistent punctuation and capitalization. And so here, I didn't really have a problem. But the fact that people in the chat did have a problem and get a little bit distracted. Like, I didn't trip up reading it, but it's still, I think, better generally just to include regular punctuation. Anyway, continuing on a little bit. Eating oranges in the shower, citrus oils making your skin. There's another thing, too. Using this part of speech, which I'm terrible at the grammar, so I can never remember what. Is it a participle? Or I can't remember the word but the ing, and I've done it before where people have told me what it is on the chat window. But those ing words, they can kind of I think it's a weird aspect of the English language where we have this really strong present tense ending for verbs. Gerund, thank you. Yeah, gerund. I don't know why I have such a problem remembering that, but the gerunds in a way. It's just a fluke of how English grammar is. They just compound, and they end up being this sort of annoying, repetitive feel to it that you can really happen. And so eating oranges in the shower, citrus oils making your skin a cathedral for growing glowing suns, treating your skin to soft luxuries, whispering to your water, knowing the river. If you can get around that. As Doug Van Hooser says, ing endings weaken the verbs. And I'm trying to remember gerunds. That's what those are called. Okay. But they do. They pull away from the meaning and sort of enter this realm of like just this repetitive, this always happening. And so you want to, like, if you see yourself using that conjugation all the time, try to find ways to write out of that, because it is something that weakens the prose. So and maybe part of it maybe is because it's less content. Like eating oranges in the shower, there's no subject. It allows you to make sentences with no subject, no sense of time, because it's just this eternal present. Whereas I was eating oranges in the shower. The citrus oils made my skin a cathedral for small glowing suns. Treating my skin, I whispered to the water, make me beautiful. If you put it in a tense in a specific place, it feels a lot more, there's just a lot more detail. And maybe that's the issue. Yeah. Darla Daisy James says, would ing be the same as verbs ending with ed? I don't think so. I'm not quite sure why that is. But there is this sort of like pylon effect that gerunds have, and maybe I'm trying like in real time to think of why, because I don't know if I've really thought about this before. I think maybe not only does it leave you in this sort of ambiguous space where it's really easy to not include a subject or a sense of time movement, but also I think it sort of like narrows the places your syntax can go to. And one of the great things about poetry is varying the syntax and moving the length of sentences, the way you say things, playing with that in a musical way has a lot to do with poetry. And I think that the ing conjugation sort of guides you. It sort of railroads you into this sort of repetitive syntax that ends up just being a little monotonous. And I think you can probably do it while avoiding that, but it's something that just, it lends itself toward as some kind of quirk of the language. And so it's not the same as using the past tense. Like there's something different about that. Yeah. Someone said Holly York is right. Oh, noun form of a verb, yeah. Exactly. So Ace Boogie says, if we change the tense, I ate oranges in the shower, etc., it gives the poem a time frame and gives it more gravity. Yeah, and there's a sort of nebulousness, and then the nebulousness just adds up. Yeah. And Lynn Schilling says the present tense is always more effective. Yeah. Yeah. Dick Westheimer says, ED is usually better. Giving the ing blurs the sound rhythm, which only sometimes rarely is desirable to me. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, that's another general piece of advice. Let's continue with the poem. There's some really nice lines here. Citrus oils making your skin a cathedral for small glowing suns, treating your skin to soft luxuries like lotion, whispering to your water, make me beautiful, knowing the river does not judge, it carries, it remembers, giving goodnight kisses to hugs, not once but twice, because repetition is a ritual. I like this part. Repetition is a ritual, and rituals make the ordinary holy. And notice this gets rid of the because sort of unlocks us from that ing repetitive thing, and we go into a present tense, and the poem feels stronger just for that, at that shift. Repetition is a ritual, and rituals make the ordinary holy. There's something confident about the way that's structured too that works. Yeah. Petty Arbor says there are times, though, when ing is necessary to show movement. I mean, it's definitely true. All rules were made to be broken. If they weren't and couldn't be broken, then they wouldn't even be options, kind of. Anyway, bare feet on the grass, for rubber soles cannot connect you to the gossip of roots. That's another phrase I really like, the gossip of roots. To the fungal lace beneath. Yeah, that's nice. So when we get to these descriptions, there are some really nice lines. And so that's another, there are a lot of signs of a good poetic ear and intuition in this poet, Carla. So, and the gossip of roots, to phrase it that way, the fungal lace beneath, the patient memory of stones, I like that. Fallen leaves in your car, they find a home in your wipers. And again, they find a home in your wipers. See, finding a home in your wipers wouldn't connect as well as putting it in the actual present. They find a home in your wipers, a soft reminder that seasons do not need your permission. Again, nice line. Honeysuckle. So the jump to this, I wasn't really sure. It was a little jarring. Sweetness that lingers longer than the flower. And maybe psalms are not written or sung. They are found in the way we offer the world our small daily devotions. Yeah, and I like the conclusion of this. I like the concept behind it. It's a matter of, again, showing it rather than telling it and letting us sort of come to that conclusion. Ryan McCarty says, it's interesting that we're okay with repetition, a nominalization, the verb repeat turned into a noun, but less okay with ing verbs. So it must be something more than just the shift from verb. Yeah, I do. I think it's what we said before. It railroads you into a repetitive syntax, because there's just not a lot of options once you start doing that. And then also, it removes the concept of time from the perspective of the person speaking. It's sort of like happening now and every time all at once. And that's just not as strong. Yeah. And then, Yeah. Well, this is a really interesting. So this is a deeper dive into a specific topic than we often get. Brian O'Sullivan says, I think the problem with gerunds is an instance of the larger problem of nominalization, sorry. Like an investigation was gone, where an action is expressed as a noun or a gerund instead of a verb. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, it is sort of like passive voice, you know? And again, I'm terrible. I don't know. I never thought I would be a poetry or English person. So I just, in English class in like 7th grade or whatever you do grammar, I like just got the A and walked in one ear and out the other. So I can't keep track. I've never been good at the details of that, but I can hear it. You read, you can hear, you learn the rhythms of the language, but what to call them. But yeah, it feels there's a passive voice aspect to it, which I think the brilliant and smarter than me, Brian O'Sullivan calls the nominalizations. But like an investigation was done instead of I investigated and feel, and also it's like the clutter too of all the extra syllables. I think that's a great example. An investigation was gone. It's 8 syllables, where you could say I investigated. There's only 6. And that like longer, that stretching of things, it feels cluttery too. So maybe that's part of it. Yeah. Another poet says, yes, passive, not active. That's what I learned from Stephen Dunn. Oh, I love Stephen Dunn. I miss him. Yeah. Okay, well, anyway, let's move on to another poet. Thanks for sharing that. I thought we generated a lot of discussion and a lot of really nice lines, especially in the second poem. So thanks for sharing that. Once again, that was Carla James, who is here today. Let's take a look at something else. And the next put up was Deborah. Where was it? Deborah Katai. So we'll label this. Put Deborah in the old search window. We have 2 poems from Deborah. Deborah coming from Connecticut. And let me look for no general questions, just 2 poems up. And Deborah sent these pretty recently. And I do believe, right? Yeah, I thought so. We published Deborah a couple years ago in the spring 2023 issue, number 79, that poem In Her Name. Yeah, I knew I recognized Deborah's name. Oh, good to see you, Deborah. Okay, so let's take a look at these poems. And the first one is this. Short of breath. Breath storms out of the room with bells on, banging the pipes, slamming the door, an awkward reenactment of the future. Meanwhile, time drips from guttering candles and wax-lit candies that Dolly would be proud to pursue beneath his mustache. The persistence of memory rips along the lane, leaving small fires in its wake. Meanwhile, the end of combustion is confusion, between the lies smeared in chalk along the asphalt and lines of sparrows stringing the wires above. Chaos cleaves reality into half-lives, where the dearly departed age out of the system. Meanwhile, no one is watching the children as they stalk their prey, casual in baggy pants and loose shoes, aimless in their attention, yet swift to draw the line between you and your last breath. Yeah, well, for a poet, if it's a poet that we've published before, it's going to have good rhythms and good lines and concrete imagery like that. And we definitely get that here. There are a lot of great details, a lot of great specificity like we were talking about before. You can see how that works. Ryan McCarty says, oh, this opens up great. And Hamid Malik says, love the first stanza. Yeah. So let's read it again. And I'll tell you what I was thinking as we go to. Tom Barlow says the repeat of breath at the start feels awkward. And Jamie Thomas says there's some banger lines here. And Lynn Schilling says need a second read to get what's going on. And me too. And there's no shame in that, I think. I read tons of poems and I don't always understand what they mean the first time through or what they're about. So sometimes you have to read them twice, which we pretty much always do here. Short of breath. Breath storms out of the room. And I wonder, My first thought, just when I jumped into this poem for the first time, was that the Short of Breath wasn't a great title, and then the repetition is a little clunky like that. I wonder if the first line should be, the title should be Breath Storms Out of the Room, and then with bells on, bang the pipes, and we just jump right into the poem like that. Yeah. Anyway, but we'll continue. So breath storms out of the room with bells on, banging the pipes, slamming the door, an awkward reenactment of the future. Meanwhile, time drips from guttering candles and wax lip candies. But I love the idea of breath storming out of the room with bells on, banging the pipes, slamming the door. I'm not sure exactly what it means for breath to go like that. Another poet has great description, but it feels a bit impersonal to me. Winston Munn says, I personally think it would be stronger without the meanwhile, back at the ranches. The reader understands the connection of time without being told, in my opinion. Okay. Anyway, meanwhile, time drips from guttering candles and wax lip candies. The dolly would be proud to purse beneath his mustache. So I love, the guttering candles and wax lip candies is a little hard to follow. Just the mental image of how the wax lip candies relate to the candles. It's almost like the candies and candles are a little too close to a pun. But then I love Dolly would be proud to purse beneath his mustache. The persistence of memory rips along the lane, leaving small fires in its wake. So again, they're great lines, but I'm not sure what to connect it to. Dream 333 says, the act of dying? Well, it is Short of Breath is the title. It's one of those poems I'm trying. I enjoy it sort of line by line, mostly, but I'm having trouble piecing together. Doug Van Hooser says it feels impersonal because you can't connect with the images. Yeah. And I think maybe, instead of Short of Breath, a title that let us access and feel more connected to the person who's here would make the poem feel more connected. Yeah. We'll continue. Leaving its wake. Meanwhile, the end of combustion is confusion between the lies smeared in chalk along the asphalt. So there are a lot of things that I'm not sure, as many good lines as there are, the lies smeared, like what lies? And that, when you say like what lies are those, you spend a lot of mental capacity trying to figure out what you missed. And it sort of takes you out of the poem and it feels like something that you can't really touch. Between the lies smeared in chalk along the asphalt. So who's smearing lies and chalk on the asphalt? About who? Or about what? And lines of sparrows stringing the wires above. I think that's a nice image. Chaos cleaves reality into half-lives, where the dearly departed age out of the system. Yeah. Meanwhile, no one is watching the children as they stalk their prey. So who are the prey? It's just a little, it's too hard to follow, really. Oh, okay. So Brian Sullivan says maybe it needs after Dolly. So Dolly was more than a line. Was Dolly is this an ekphrastic poem of that whole dripping clock painting? Is that what? Are other details, the children and things? Let me look it up. What's the Dolly clock painting? It's the persistence of memory. Okay. And I think we had a line. See, I didn't know that. Maybe I should have. It is one of the most famous poems ever, but I did not. Are there more details? Here's the painting. Is this a straight, ekphrastic poem of this image? Let me try to, oh no, I don't want to sign up for your newsletter. I just want to look at your image you stole. Okay. Try to get it here. So, yeah. Well, I don't know if this was a really good link. I'm sorry. But is the rest of the poem there? So we had a persistence of memory as the title. So maybe to let us know it more directly what it's talking about, because I thought just this one image. Yeah. And that might clear up all the confusion. Jesse A says, I think Dolly is only the second stanza, and the lips is that famous couch thing you made. Oh, Another poet says this is clear about America, but what? Deborah says it is an ekphrastic. Okay. Okay. So Deborah says just references the painting along with other images in a sort of collage. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so it's one of the things. There are great lines throughout, and I'm having trouble connecting the dots. I just don't know. Short of breath is the title, and there are times when we're short of breath. It could be a health condition. It could be aging. Let's see. Winston Munn says that the poem is about death could start breath storms out of the room just ahead of the soul. That's a good idea. Rose Leonard says, I also like how the poem circles back to breath at the end. Jesse A says, the third stanza is really confusing to me. Not sure what the whole poem is about. Yeah. And then Kimberly Gibson Tran points out another mysterious you in this poem's last line. Yeah. And so ultimately it becomes one of those poems where a lot of great lines, a really great sentence flow. I feel engaged. I just feel left out from knowing what it's really about. Yeah, Jamie Thomas says, I would love to see this poet do a narrative piece about anything personal and use this language and observation level. Yeah. And Jesse says it, but I love the imagery in general, and that last stanza is quite interesting. And again, we'll say, meanwhile, no one is watching the children as they stalk their prey, casual in baggy pants and loose shoes. It's just great rhythms and description and detail. Aimless in their attention, yet swift to draw the line between you and your last breath. And again, that is the first appearance of you, and who are you talking to? Is that the speaker talking to themselves? Are you talking to the reader? Are you talking to someone specific? Winston Munn says, we need to be situated early on. Yeah, I just feel unsituated. Holly York says it's a collage. Yeah. And I don't know. And I do, this is one thing I wonder about, to be honest, is if, I always try to make poems more clear and so, so the reader, more inviting to the reader so we can know, where we are and how we can connect to what's going on in the poem on like an emotional level. And, but then some people saying I'm writing a collage poem, and is it just that I appreciate more being able to access poems, and then our audience, because they read Rattle and come here, are the kind of people who more like these poems, or do people that are not us like these poems a lot, and am I giving bad advice by saying there should be more clarity? But then we look at all the great poems throughout history. And even like, say, I don't know, like Sylvia Plath can be a little cryptic and confusing at times. And yet, with all those sort of leaps of imagination and the kind of chaos that goes on in her poems, we know where we are. And it's hard to think of, Ashbery as an example that everybody always pulls up. And sometimes, I can dig into an Ashbery poem and enjoy it, but usually not. Yeah. Yeah, Brandon Sullivan says, I think it gets really close to that happy point where readers would say, I don't know what it means, but I love it anyway. I understand that as a goal, too. Yeah. I think I pulled up this poem in not too long ago, but there's a certain poem, there is a kind of poem that I don't really know what it's about exactly, but I love it, which is a great thing to say, too. And the one is an example that we have in Rattle. I mean, and we have a lot of poems like this in Rattle, but the one that I can like bring to mind is this one by Tomás Salomón. And it's just untitled, so we don't even get the help of that. But it's this one here. And I don't know really what this means, but I love it. And so why do I feel like there's a one way certain poems make me feel really left out when I don't get to follow the situation. I'm kind of lost in space. It's a collage. In other poems, I'm like happy to sit there. And what is the difference? You know? Let's read this one by Tomas Salamun again. Untitled. Anyone who falls into an Arabic night should know that laws there are ruthless and brutal. At first one hears the tangle from the high stone walls. Someone drops a rope with a basket. Leave the dates alone. Don't eat them. That's how they stop drovers. If the rope is strong enough, allow yourself to be pulled up. For 3 days I was smiling and bowing and was just about to eat the rugs when God caught me naked. And again, I've read this poem over and over again for years. I don't understand what it's about, but I love it. It's like one of my favorite poems we've published. I don't really know why. And I feel like we get, remember to hit that like button, says Katie Struggs Galloway. Also, remember to hit the rattle button. So this is a new feature we have on our website. If you come across a poem in rattle and you don't, you can hit us up to 10 times. I think people don't even know that. It keeps breaking and we keep fixing it, but we're working on it and we want to make this like the new like button. It's really fun. So make sure you hit that when you find any poems you like. But anyway, and do click the like button on this YouTube video. That'll help a lot. But what is the difference? Why do I feel, and I wonder about this all the time, because there are certain poems, there's a lot of Wallace Stevens poems where I don't really understand, but then I love. Yeah. Jay Kvarstorm says, I wonder if the difference lives in how we connect with the images. Let's see. Well, let's look at the difference. I want to break this down a little bit more. Anyone who falls into an Arabic night, which I don't know exactly what it means, but I like the sound of it, should know that laws there are ruthless and brutal. At first one hears, tangle. So we have already, and maybe this is the difference actually right away, is that we have this voice it's sort of confidently, Winston Munn said it right as I was saying it, confidence. There's this voice that's confiding in us, that's telling us like it has authority, it has a special knowledge that it's imparting to us. It knows like something, it has a secret that it's going to be telling us. And like we lean in to hear, And I think that's the difference, maybe. Yeah, exactly, Winston, is confidence. Anyone who falls into an Arabic night should know that laws there are ruthless, brutal. At first one hears tangle from the high stone. And then it is very specific and concrete. It's telling us this sort of generality of what happens. But it's telling us in this like with a surety and confidence. It is like, the voice has expertise to share. And it is the metaphor. I remember I did take one like ballroom dancing class, and the instructor was like, you have to be confident. Your partner needs to know that you know what you're doing in order to have a good time. And I think about that with poetry all the time. Like there's the confidence to take us on a journey is what we want. Tangle from the high stone walls. Someone drops a rope with a basket. Leave the dates alone. I love that. Leave the dates alone. Don't eat them. That's how they stop drovers. If the rope is strong enough, allow yourself to be pulled up. For 3 days I was smiling and bowing and was just about to eat the rugs when God caught me naked. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, I think maybe that's it. Is that the voice, maybe another way to put it, is the voice is strong enough that it becomes a character. And if the voice can become a character, then we'll go a lot farther in not understanding what's going on. Chelsea McClellan says, for me, the difference is the sound and the language working mimetically with a feeling. I think the Untitled has that quality if you broke it down. That's a good point too, yeah. There's a consistency to the emotion too. Let's swing back and look at this again. And how could we change it? A breath storms out of the room. The other one has this like, let me tell you, what we're talking about with confidence. And I think this, needs a little bit more to it. Yeah. But great details. So great, I guess maybe it's like details that are missing a structure in a way. Anyway, I think that's enough of this poem. Thanks so much for sharing that one. And let's take a look at the other one that Deborah had for us. Between the Storms. So we get a storm again. In perfect timing, because out the window I just saw a bolt of lightning here in South Texas. So between the storms, I think we are between the storms right now. Okay, between the storms. Nights errant under the moon's dim trailing shroud. No stars to steer by. Days the sky stays muddy. Sometimes Celadon, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, against the sideways rain. Sometimes a blood sun against the horizon. We poured whole barrels of drink over the side during the last storm, our bribes to Neptune, they said, dissolving rudderless in the roiling, whiny dark. The oars slice the water while their fulcrums raise a ruckus, subjecting in the oarlocks. Back-breaking labor that keeps the ship aright, if not progressing, numbing the terror that connects the last storm to the next. Terra firma last seen 3 weeks ago, the port where the galleon was seen off by provisioners and raucous gulls, the gangway, our last rickety link to home. Now reduced to hard biscuits and brackish water. Hard to say which is worse, the nauseating swell of the waves or their constant drumming. When did we last sleep or set our sails? Time has no meaning when each stroke echoes the last. Perhaps the captain knows where we head, what faith we have we put in him to save us from the caprices of the gods. Mother, if you could see me now, rowing and retching is all I know, that the whip, this ship will kill me. No one here knows my name or cares, nor do I mark the men around me, save the back of the one on the next bench. The twisted scar on his left shoulder, the only map I can read. And where will it take me? Never back to you, mother, or the liquid sounds of our tongue. Never anything again except lowering sky, battering the water. Yeah, well, Nancy Semanek says, great storytelling and compelling language. And Jamie Thomas says, well, dang. Yeah, very gripping. I mean, if this were, and it feels kind of like this, if this were the opening lines to a novel, I would say, wow, this is a really well-written novel. I want to read the whole thing. The one thing, it feels like a section of a book, and just the start of a book, though, is a standalone poem. I'm not sure if it holds together. It feels like part of something much larger. That Kimberly Gibson Tran says, woohoo, I like the muscular style and theme. Yeah, me too. And that's a great example of what people mean when they say a muscular style. Yeah. Knights errant under the moon. Yeah. Our VidNote says, this is great, but I think I might want one or two more details about the narrator's backstory. Yeah. I mean, what I just want is more. I want this whole thing to keep going and going and going, really. I think if we're trying to make it like a standalone poem, everyone's saying more backstory, and I agree. It just doesn't feel like we have a whole. It's like a sliver of whatever's going on. And as always, the title could do that. One of the things you can do if you have, because everybody likes to publish their poems individually before it comes out in the book, you can have a title in a magazine like Rattle or whatever that describes the scene that's happening in your book, your novel in verse or whatever, and fills in the details that are missing as a standalone poem. And then when you put your book out later, you can just title it the regular title you want within the collection. Taylor Mann says this could be the first poem in a series, a chapbook, I think. Yeah. Yeah, and Kelly Gibson Tran says, yes, this could be epic length or go for a novel in verse like Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Yeah. Standing alone, I just don't know if it it creates a scene. It's like the difference between, watching a movie that's compelling and then being transformed by a full movie or something, yeah. So Deborah, I'm going to ask, is this feels to me like part of a larger piece. Is it? And then it is always the tricky thing with how to publish the poems individually. But I think you can both use not only changing the title just temporarily, and you'll see people do this all the time for different reasons, where say, this was published in Glimmer Train, but it used under a different title or whatever. You can do that, and you can also add epigrams or epigraphs to let us know some of the backstory so we can sort of fit. Yeah. Oh, Deborah says it's the only piece so far. Yeah. Yeah, and Kelly Gibson Tran says there's something Homeric about the rhythm, too. Yeah, I really enjoy this. Yeah. I mean, the only thing is that it leaves me, instead of feeling like there's a way that, a poem is like a thrown ball where there's like an arc going up and then a landing. And it feels like there's no landing. Like it's still going up. And so it doesn't have that satisfactory like we went somewhere journey feel. It's like the journey's just started. Winston Munn says, maybe a James Wright-ish ending. For sure, I've wasted my life. Let's see how that reads. Well, just for fun. Let's see. So, never back to you, mother, or the liquid sounds of our tongues. Never anything again except lowering sky, battering the water. I have wasted my life. Yeah. I mean, it does. You could put an artificial cap on that and make it work. But I feel like an epic. I want to come back to this and make it a long poem. I think it's cool. Yeah. And then I guess the other thing we could do, since you did say this is the only piece of this, Deborah, is to I lost my train of thought again. I keep reading things and forgetting what I'm saying. So the other way we could sort of make this a standalone poem is by making the title an extended metaphor and using that kind of haiku concept or haibun concept, where we have a cut between the, in a haibun, you have the prose body and then a haiku that cuts against it, and then the title that cuts against that. And everything is like that leap that a haiku makes, except in different scales. And if you had that kind of title, like if the title, was, shopping on New Year's Eve, just to pick an absurd one, but really, if we called it shopping on New Year's Eve, nights errant under the moon's dim trailing shroud, no stars to steer by, days the sky stays muddy, and it becomes this whole description of like what it's like to not have bought your wife a Christmas present yet, and it's like the clock's ticking on the mall, before they lock the doors. You can that's gonna be where the leap and the transformation comes, is in the title, and then you can do more with it when you make it a longer book too. Let's see. Shiv Freak Music says Plowshare is publishing long form poetry. Yeah, and we do at Rattle too. I mean, we have that 30-page long retelling of Beowulf as a cowboy in issue number 30. We have a verse play in sonnets in issue number 33 by Tony Barnstone. That's like a film noir kind of thing. We have, in the issue coming up, we have a long poem by Gregory Orr about teaching after he retired. That's like 10 pages long. So anyway, yeah, there's definitely places you can find for long poems. And I think just keep working at this and pushing it farther and seeing where it goes is my main advice, because I think it feels like the start of something cool. All right. Well, there's 5 minutes left. I don't want to do a full one. Let's do, but that'll wrap it up. Thanks, Deborah, for sharing that. Let's do one more, just random. Let's do some with only. Okay. Well, I don't know. We don't really have time for a whole another poem or I want to give I want to go seriously through whoever we go through. Does anybody have any general questions they've been wondering about, or any topics? It's been a really fun, but a really concise critique of the week this week. Let's see. Yeah, Nancy Banks says, I enjoyed your poems. Some says, congrats to another poet. Let me see what that was about. Another poet says, I have a 5-page poem published by the Journal of American Poetry. Maybe it just needs to keep going a little bit. Another poet who I remember, who is another poet? But anyway, congratulations on that. That's really cool. I've forgotten who another poet's handle was. Yeah. Yeah. Rose Leonard says, have you all submitted your pamphlets already? Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I definitely wish I could if it wasn't. Let's see. Winston Munn says, do all poems need a stance? That's an interesting. I mean, what do you mean by a stance? Yeah, like a perspective or a position, I would say yes. a stance is like a ideology or some specific thing like that, a specific way of seeing the world, maybe, yes, but I don't know. Oh, it's Mary Lisa. That's another poet. Okay, great. Congratulations, Mary Lisa. Yeah. It used to be that it would show your names, and now it just shows handles. And most people's handles are their names, but for you, it's another poet. I don't know why. Also, I think the RR Vids, is that Carla Schwartz? I'm not sure. But anyway, congratulations, Mary Lisa. That's really cool to hear. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up. So thanks, everybody, for joining us. It's been a lot of fun. I really do love stopping in the middle of the day and talking about poetry with y'all. Your great advice, as always. It's just a great group of people, and all so friendly and supportive. I always appreciate it. It's the beginning of the year. It's always nice to say that, but I especially want to highlight that now because it is really wonderful to have you here, and it really makes this whole thing a lot of fun to do. So thank you all for being here. Oh, our vid notes is Rachel Grieve. Okay. Well, good to know. Well, a lot of great comments from our vid notes. That makes sense because Rachel has lots of good comments all the time. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up the critique of the week. So coming up on the Rattlecast, this week's guest is going to be Jen Karetnik, who is really interesting. Just so, what's the word? Hit the like button, by the way. Thanks, Mary. Just a prolific, that is the word. She's a prolific writer. She's the author of 22 books, a lot of them in like food writing. And she has 2 books of poetry forthcoming later this year, and a book that won the Cider Press Review Prize a couple years ago, Inheritance with a Higher Error Rate. She's going to share a few poems from there, a few poems from upcoming books. She's also one of the founding editors of Swim, that wonderful online program. It's like an arts program and an online magazine. They have a daily poem. And really great stuff out of Swim. And we're going to be really fun talking to Jen, who it seems like she does so much. So it's going to be really cool getting to know her better and sharing some of her poems. That's the guest this week on the Rattlecast. The prompt this week was to, let me pull it up, because I don't remember it at all this time. Write a poem that explores something left behind. Include as many tactile details as possible. That was your prompt for this week. And your guest, once again, Jen Karetnik. That's Rattlecast number 325, Monday, January 5th. No, not January 5th. I should fix that. January 12th. Regular time, though, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hope to see you there. Hope you have a great week in the meantime, and we'll talk to you later. Goodbye.